Time for another dose of Ruck'n Maul. It's Greg Growden alongside Sam Bruce. Greg, we've spoken about the Reds a number of times already this year. We're going to talk about them again with Quade Cooper gone for another injury stint.
Well, that's right. The loss of Quade Cooper affects both Queensland rugby and Australian rugby. Will he get back in time for the World Cup? Because I'd imagine Michael Checker's already shown that he's keen on Cooper, but it's now vulnerable. He's hurt both shoulders. And do you take, a liability to the World Cup? So that's up in the air. But for the Reds, they are going through an absolutely diabolical time. You can see they've lost their spirit and now lost their playmaker after he came back for one game and looked terrific. And then next game, affecting what looked like a very good tackle, has done it again. So, and what do they do at number 10? They've tried Nick Frisbee before, it failed. He came on for the last 15, 20 minutes when Cooper had to be replaced, and struggled again. So Richard Graham is saying, well, I'm going to stick with this, but you think, well, it's going to be tough. Does he bite the bullet and pick James O'Connor there?
James Horwell, we saw on Friday night, he got his second red card for the season for a swinging arm on Paul Allo-Emile. Number one, what did you make of the decision? And number two, what's going on with James Horwell?
It was the right decision. James Horwell went into that ruck with a swinging arm, and if he wasn't going for the ball, he was going for that bloke's head. And crazy situation for one of the most senior players in that squad, and in a situation where the Reds have really had to sort of toe the line pretty close at the moment because in such diabolical form, they need guys like Hall standing up. And for another level of ill discipline like that, saw him in the bin again. And the point is, it also will affect his Test aspirations. He was the World Cup captain at the last tournament. I just can't see him making it now because Michael Checker has made it pretty clear he wants players who are disciplined, particularly at a tournament where there's bound to be a lot of penalties and infringements at the breakdown. You can't have blokes doing silly things. So Horwell's Test career is really up in the air now, and it's also put the Reds in a diabolical situation where, Richard Graham did the right thing and said, no, okay, you got 1 week suspension, but we're not going to take you to South Africa. So, and also, you felt sorry for the Reds players last week because for 60 minutes, they had to really try hard to stay in that game, and they did it really well for about 40 minutes. So they really did rattle the Rebels, and every Reds forward stood up for easily what I thought was their most courageous effort of the year. But if Hall was there, they could have easily won. So a silly moment for a player who should have known better.
The pack did stand up, and the main man was Liam Gill. Yes. He's come back from that 2-week suspension for that lifting tackle. He's in that pack with Michael Hooper and David Pocock for that Wallabies number 7 jersey. Where is he fitting in now? That was an outstanding 60 minutes.
It was an outstanding game. I honestly believe that Liam Gill's been the form number 7 in the Australian rugby promises this year. Hooper's slowly getting there. Pocock is gradually coming back, but even that game when he got suspended for 2 weeks for the World Wrestling Federation backflip, he's still playing really well. And he's doing it in a team of strugglers. And I've always found a bit strange at Liam Gill that he seemed to have a period there where Ewan McKenzie went off him and he never got an opportunity. I found very surprising. And then he ended up being in the Sevens team. I've always liked Liam Gill. I think he's a real tenacious player. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's the first pick to go to the World Cup. He's the type of player they need. And this is the way it is. The good coaches like the players who perform in adversity. Yep. And Liam Gill's doing that.
Whatever the case, some great depth there for the Wallabies at number 7. The Sevens, they had a horror tournament in Tokyo. They lost to Portugal, went into the 2nd division and then finished up losing the plate, I think it was, to the United States. They've now dropped away from England in that race for the 4th spot. Worrying times.
Well, I watched that Portugal game and I was in a state of shock. It was diabolical. Now the situation is with the Sevens is the Australian Rugby Union have really pushed the Sevens program, primarily because of the exposure they'll get at the Olympic Games in Rio. And also they're trying to encourage the key players to be part of the Sevens team. Now the threat is that they won't automatically qualify because they're now in 5th spot. Only the top 4 teams the top 4 teams of the IOB World Sevens go through. So Australia are in serious doubt of making that easily qualifying, and instead have to go through all these repecharges and all these competitions, which is going to make it hard for them to lure the big 15s players, because if you're going to say, yeah, you can play straight in the Rio Games, they'll want to be part of it. I don't think they want to be part in Mickey Mouse qualifying tournaments here, there and everywhere. So this is a real dilemma for Australian Sevens. They will eventually qualify for Rio. It will be the hard way, but I think they'll have to do it with what they've got and without any main names.
Yeah, it looks like England might be a little too tough to catch in the closing tournaments there in Glasgow and, of course, at Twickenham. Greg, any other rumblings around this week?
It's actually been very quiet. I think Easter's calmed everyone down, but give it 24 hours, it'll be chaos again.
Another big round of Super Rugby coming up. Catch it all at espnscrum.com.